Hi, everybody. My name is Tammy Berman. I'm a licensed mental health counselor here in South Florida and virtually across the state of Florida. And I specialize in helping people through the divorce process. And I'd like to have my counterpart introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Chev again. I'm a licensed mental health counselor specializing in divorce and co-parenting as well.
So we wanted to just have a quick conversation to share ideas and thoughts about something that often comes up in dealing with helping people through the divorce process, which is the challenge of dating after divorce, deciding. I guess there's many questions around that. Like, when is it timing? Like, when is it okay to start dating, not dating? How do you deal with kids regarding dating? And then I'm throwing a lot of things out there at you, Sheva. And then another thought is also, what I've dealt with a lot in terms of therapy is people coming in not wanting to repeat the same kind of cycles that they have in their past relationships and being fearful of that repeat happening again. So what do you think? What do you want to
what another big challenge is for people is people who've been married for 10 years, 15 years. The entire dating platform arena has changed. Oh, yeah. Rarely do you go out socially and get picked up and hit on or interact with people, especially nowadays. Everything's social is shut down. So everything is online. Even online dating, the reputation of online dating has changed within the last 5 years. Tinder started as a hookup app, and now these are legitimate ways to meet people. So if you were married for someone that you met in your 20s and 30s, and then now you're all of a sudden on the dating scene, it's very overwhelming.
What else? About Tinder, just a side thing. I have a client that made friends just for friends to hang out through Tinder. Just saying.
I have a friend who did this. She wasn't a client actually. And she did intentionally. She was divorced and lonely and not meeting the type of guys that she wanted. So she went on the apps. Actually, it was a site because it was a while ago. It was JDate, I think. And she looked for a woman that had a kid her age and she liked her profile. And she reached out and said, hey, I'm just looking for a friend. And they are best friends. It's been probably 15 years. And they kind of went through the process together. And it was from a dating site.
That's hilarious. Funny? So I'm sorry, that's a side tangent. But yeah.
But some sites actually have friendship. Like I know that Bumble has the BFF, so you can actually network for business or you can look for friends. So they offer you different options of connection to people. Yeah, that's a good point though.
So yeah, so these are like a few of the little things that I think we've heard and been exposed to in terms of the challenges post-divorce and when it comes to dating. I will tell you guys that like I said before, one of the challenges that have often come into my office are people trying to be really proactive at not wanting to repeat the same dynamics, the same storyline, the same concern that they had from the past. That's a common fear, concern, at least that shows up in my office. And yes, and the other one is what you said, Sheva, which is like this whole new evolution of the dating world. Like, how do I even meet people now? Like, what the hell is going on with like meeting people? So what would you say as just some commentary, some like suggestions, helpful advice on handling those kind of things first?
So dating after divorce requires a lot of self-awareness, and at the same time, I often do, if I'm working with a client who's dating after divorce, we spend time on a guided meditation. This is so important. You need to visualize some type of protective shell for yourself. I don't care if you're not into meditation or visual imagery, but this is a must. It is so hard to not take things personally. A lot of people, even if you're moving away from the divorce, it's still you're emotionally raw. And then you're putting yourself out there, you're being vulnerable. And then like everything has changed. The social norms and the social etiquette that we grew up with, where you don't ignore people, you respond. If you're in the middle of a conversation, you don't disappear. Now with text, all of that's, you're not interested anymore, you don't text somebody back. And if you're not used to that, can be gut-wrenching and it is offensive, and you already have all of these insecurities from your divorce, and then it's like, oh my God, if you're in your 30s and 40s, there's a lot of insecurities that go into dating. So if you're dating after divorce, you have got to imagine some type of protective. Is it a bubble? Is it armor? Is it a spacesuit? But when you start texting and it starts to get personal and you feel offended, you got to zip up that suit and just, it's not about you. It's just, don't take it personally.
Yeah.
That's the biggest tip.
Let me add to that. So from a therapeutic standpoint, some of the like underlying clinical stuff that I might address like around this particular thing is about counterbalancing how you protect yourself in the world with how do you strengthen your inner core of who you are in terms of your healing and being a happy, however that client defines happiness, but being a well-adjusted, happy, solid person that's able to meet the world in a good way too. So there's that too.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a lot of balance where it's learning how to be vulnerable and real, and you want a real authentic relationship, I imagine, and also zipping up that protective suit of, it's keeping a little bit of a distance there in terms of guarding your emotions and not taking things too personally.
Yeah.
And I think as you're talking, another huge tip that I would really, really, really recommend is take time. I know that when people get divorced, they really want to get out there, especially people who are in a bad marriage. They always say, I've done all the work already, right? I was divorced in my mind 3 years ago and it was over and I've already done the work, but it really isn't. Like, not until you're done and it's complete and you actually are alone and separate and really working through some of that stuff. And people want to run. I get it. It feels good. You want the distraction. You want to flirt. You want to look pretty. You want to get some of that feedback that makes you feel good. I think it's an important time. Truly, I stand by this of learning how to be alone. Mm-hmm. Before you rush into a relationship, when you truly can be alone and it's not comfortable. It is a painful place to have a Friday night alone in your house. And especially if you have kids and the kids are at your ex's house. And it's quiet, and that's an uncomfortable quiet, but it's so important because then when you're ready, when you learn how to be alone, then you start to choose who you want to be with.
Yes.
Instead of just being with somebody for the sake of not feeling lonely. And that's when you get into the trouble of patterns.
And excellent. And in that space of being alone, you learn to have a relationship with yourself. You give yourself the space to start to have a relationship and honor who you are, what your likes, your vulnerabilities, your dislikes, your whatever. Yeah, that's excellent.
Which is ironic, I think, because a lot of times when let's say we're talking about people who've been married 10, 15 years, I think that's a common complaint. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't have any needs. My needs aren't being listened to. But then when they get divorced, not enough time is given to actually figure out, well, who are you and what do you want and what makes you happy? It's this quick rush to, I don't want to feel the pain. I don't want to be alone. I want to, have that connection, which is great, but make sure you do the time. Make sure you do the time.
Yeah. So this brings us to then in my head, it brings us to, that what you just said, it gives you time and space to then be choosy. Who do you want in your life? Being intentional about what you want, what you don't want. And then then there's practice around how to vet for that, how to develop a radar and cultivate parameters with a new relationship, a new person that you're considering bringing into your life about what's okay and what's not okay, and how to speak about that, and those kind of, I think there's skills on how to manage your relationships, manage your environment to ensure that you're intentional about what you're bringing in, what you're not bringing in. But you develop you cultivate that awareness through the private time, the uncomfortable private time you have.
Oh gosh. It all comes up when you are alone at a Friday night and a weekend. It will come up. It will be
for sure.
I like what you said, Tammy, about that. It is a skill, and I would even go further to say, write it down. Right. So what are you looking for? What do you want in a relationship, in a partner? And also start to differentiate between a must-have. I know for me, a must-have is somebody who has a positive outlook in life. I don't deal well with outward aggression and anger. So that's a must-have. I'm not really willing to negotiate there. But there's other things that I'd like to have, but there's wiggle room. when you know that more, and that really helps to write it, even if it's in your head, put it on paper. Then when you go on dates, you can come home and be more conscientious in your dating instead of, oh, it felt good, right? So there's things feel good. Romance is fun and flirting is fun. But if you're not conscientious, you end up in a relationship where there are things that you don't want to compromise on, or those things that you're not happy with or you don't want. And if you do that at the beginning stage, it will help you avoid getting stuck later on. So write a list, go out, come home and check your list. Okay, like what's going on here? Where do they match up? Where do they align? And where do they not? And then be intentional. That's really what you said. It's intentional.
Yes, intentional. Those are really great points. Okay, so last conversation around this dating after divorce, which also kind of comes up. It comes up through the back door clinically and with the family law arena that I deal with a lot, which is when is it okay to start introducing it to kids, the idea of I'm dating somebody or not, or, you know, like speaking about that. So what would be some of your
I'm actually curious about your opinion here. I think that there's a couple of factors. One, how old are your kids and how long after the divorce is it? It's really dependent on that. I do think that there should be some time. And also, it also depends on how traumatic was the divorce for the kids. And if it was somewhat amicable and the kids maybe are getting support and they have a way to process their emotions, maybe there's room a little bit earlier. But I think sometimes kids aren't giving that space to process what's going on. And then bam, there's somebody new in their life. And there's so many insecurities. I mean, divorce happens and children can deal with it. But what is happening is that they're losing their sense of safety, right? So I used to think that my home was sacrosanct. I had this family, I had a mom and dad, and then one day it doesn't exist. And when you do things, when you bring new people in and then they leave and you break up and it's too soon, it just reinforces that belief that the world isn't safe. And so
that was so well said. Yes, actually everything you said in terms of considering what to consider in making the decision of like, how do I introduce a person? When do I introduce a person? There's a lot to consider, and all those points you made, I would absolutely reinforce and agree with. It really does depend, but all these factors should be considered when you're thinking about bringing in a new person, introducing a new person to your kids' lives. And so you need a good radar on how they're doing, how they've managed through the divorce process. And if you don't have a good radar, you can rely on other professionals to help you with that radar. Like it's definitely great to have a little bit of therapy for kids and helping with the adjustment. It's a major adjustment. There's a lot of loss, whether you like it or not. The reality is when you restructure the family unit, that the sense of safety, as you put it, Sheva, their sense of security is kind of being reorganized. Their life is being reorganized. So I think a therapist is a great ally to help you with a radar if you don't yourself have a good gauge or don't trust your gauge in terms of the effects of the divorce, their sense of security with their parental relationships and how that's going. With regards to their relationship with the parent who's considering bringing in this new person. There's a lot to consider. And then how solid is that relationship? Is it worth it? I do think that's another part too, is, in general, I would say it's never good to bring in someone random that you're not 100% solid. Why would you? Why would you share that this person is of significance when you yourself are not sure that this person is of significance? Like you're still in the middle zone of figuring it out. Why bother messing with their sense of security and safety? It's not.
Often it's convenience, right? We have limited time as it is. So I don't have time. I want to kind of do it all at the same time. So I get it, but consider the costs of that. Again, effective. How might this affect me or my kids in the future?
Right. The long-term effects. Right. So yes. And convenience and the practicalities of life, but the impact of relationship dynamics, security is much more long-term, long-lived. than the practicality, convenience of day-to-day functioning. So you should take that into consideration when you make decisions about exposing your kids to new people that are supposedly going to be like close within the realm of their network, their safety network. So yeah, so there's a lot to consider.
There's
and we're
a lot.
yeah, a lot. And it's not easy. And we're happy to be of support to anybody out there that might need the support. We also actually are part of a divorce workshop called Second Saturday Broward that meets monthly, and it educates people on the legal, emotional, and financial aspects of going through divorce that can help prepare you through the process. But we also offer individual therapy and group support, and happy to be a resource to you guys. Thank you.
Reach out if you need any support.